My brother got me excited about aviation. From there, when you decide to do something, you jump in with both feet, or I do at least.
They wanted to do something more. Concept of building something wrapped around World War II aviation.
I think that I've always wanted to build a museum.
From an early age, 6 or 7 years old, all I wanted to be is around these World War II airplanes.
It's amazing how much goes on behind the scenes here.
The museum as a whole is much more than the airplanes. Everything moves, it comes to life.
A learning environment that hopefully can engage everybody.
Telling the story of the people who were there.
And taking that time in our history, let's not do that again.
And I'm going to walk you through what we do every morning to bring the museum to life.
To see it and build it, and then I think in the last 2 years, watch it actually blossom and flourish. There's a lot of museums that are bigger, and I go, absolutely. There's huge museums, but they're not better.
And you take these things that have been sitting out for 40 years in the elements or underwater, you restore them to flying condition using a fair amount of actual parts.
My dad's business went from a couple of guys that were barely making it to a pretty proficient restoration shop, if not the #1 shop in the world, really.
We would say, hey, this is what we need to do, because if not, it's going to take us 6 years to build that project.
So it's quite a feat to restore these airplanes to flying condition. Been fun. It's just been a discussion among friends.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Winged Victory with Rob and Scott, a podcast by the National Museum of World War II Aviation here in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Well, howdy. Welcome to another episode of the Winged Victory podcast with Rob, me. My partner in pod crime, Scott, is off getting some repairs done. But today I'm joined by a couple of returnees, the very famous ZORRO Lopez and Mark. Say hi, ZORRO.
Good morning.
So the audio audience can distinguish your voice. And Mark Brush.
Good morning.
But today we're going to talk about SERE, Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. This topic came up a little bit when we were talking to the Vietnam guys. Ashby and Johnny mentioned going to jungle school in the Philippines, and Kent Michelson also. I guess he went to Fairchild as well. He said, yeah, they sent me to Northwest Washington in January to learn how to survive in Southeast Asia. But I think the SERE that we know was born out of the Vietnam prison experience. There was one guy who was a POW for 9 years. Mm-hmm. And previous experiences, World War II, was a different problem for people. Korea, while absolutely brutal, and we lost, about 1 in 4. but that again was 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And I think what I'd like to do, and we are not going to reveal any sensitive TTPs or anything, but the POW camp experience that SERE gives people, I think, is the real takeaway. But you're welcome to differ with that. And you were also talking about some of the rest of the fun things that aircrew especially deservedly get put through. But, and so, Mark, you're an alumnus of Navy SERE School.
Right. Warner Springs. Yep.
Yeah. They have one up in Maine, too.
They do.
Which ought to be really fun.
Had a couple of fellow crewmen go through that school as well, having to wear snowshoes and learning to survive in the winter so we can deploy to Iraq. Doesn't sound a lot different than Washington.
Yeah. And ZORRO, the Air Force, because you Air Force helo pilots are ever so special.
Yes, I ended up going to Fairchild. That was a unique experience.
Okay. And so, again, the Navy, which is the one I'm more familiar with, you had academics at North Island, and then you went out to the field. Was this all at Fairchild, or?
Yeah, when you get to Fairchild, you go through 3 weeks. The first week is academics. The second week, you're out actually in the forest learning everything you just learned in academics. And then they say run, because then they're going to go catch you, and you spend the last week in a POW camp.
Okay, so, but it was just one concentrated week in a camp.
Correct.
Because when I was talking to Don Johnson, I thought this really sucked. They put him in the camp, and then they took him back for more academics, and then they sent him back to the camp.
That's nuts.
How could that? How could you make this
out of that
worse?
environment?
Well,
yeah,
you're there to learn certain lessons, and if you don't learn those lessons, you can't graduate until you do learn the lessons. That's what's happening.
But in Don's case, that he learned the lessons, obviously.
Right.
But so 1 week in the camp. Was Warner Springs a whole week?
No, we didn't. Well, the school was.
Well,
we didn't spend a whole. So the field, because when you get to Warner Springs, you do the survival portion of the school, and then the evasion. So it's, the word breaks down to exactly what the school's about. So you do the survival part, then the evasion part, get captured, then the camp part. So the classroom academic stuff was a week at the beginning, and then the second week was all out in the field. One of the big things right off the bat, like you said, this being born out of the Vietnam experience, is they realized that really what SERE School is all about, it's not a secret, but it's capture shock. So it's exposing you to a situation that is so realistic that you feel like you're going through it. So the next time you go through it, you're able to relax and say, okay, I got this. I got the skills and the tools and everything to be able to survive, evade, and survive if I get captured. But that's the whole thing in a nutshell. It's just exposing you to something that's hyper realistic to the point where your mind actually thinks that you're captured towards the end, which was the situation for a bunch of us. But that's essentially what it is.
And the school is so realistic that at the beginning in academics, we had some POWs from the Iraqi war that were in there. And they told us what you're about to go through. And they said, by the way, this school was a lot tougher than the Iraqis were to me. And we went, great, what am I doing here? And sure enough, by the end, you are more than prepared.
Well, that's the good thing. I mean,
it is.
Nobody wants to go through this for real. I mean, nobody really wants to go through it for training either. But I believe it's not an optional thing for helicopter crews, SOF. I was a little surprised that more conventional Air Force pilots went through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all air crew go through that in the United States Air Force. It's mandatory, and if you don't make it through there, you will lose your job as an air crew member in the Air Force. Unlike the Army, which has, when I went through the Army, I spent 10 years in the Army, we had at that time in the 80s close to 37,000 air crew members. combined, and there's just no way we could send that many people through. In my career field, it's Special Ops Combat Rescue. There's only 274 pilots on active duty. That included the Guard Reserve and active duty combined. So yes, you're all going to school, and so I was shocked when it goes, "You're sending me where to go do what, to learn what?" So it was a unique experience.
Well, but you're gonna graduate from this school, or you're gonna have a different career entirely. That's a pretty powerful motivator
It is
to stay with it.
And there were some people that quit for all intents and purposes. They said, "I do not want to do this," and I was shocked at some of those.
Well, better to have them quit then.
Yes.
Than when it really counts. But now, did you go through with a crew or just by yourselves?
We went by ourselves because when we got in there, as a matter of fact, like I said, I spent 10 years in the Army. So when I went through SERE school, I was 33 years old. And so they came up to me and they said, "You're the SRO." I'm like, "Okay, that means nothing to me. What does that mean?"
Senior ranking officer.
Yeah, I was a senior ranking officer, and I had never heard that acronym.
Yeah.
But I'm in there with a bunch of second lieutenants who were all going off pilot training, a bunch of PJs, a lot of enlisted guys, combat photographers, that kind of thing. And I'm like, "Okay, I'm the old man here." And
that essentially means you pay for everything.
Exactly. And so it was interesting. They pass out these numbers. And they're passing out numbers 1 through whatever how many people we were in the class. And I remember walking up to this kid. He was a combat photographer. He was like 18, 19 years old. I said, "Hey, 7's always been my lucky number. You want to trade?" So he goes, "Sure." So we traded, not knowing that the numbers mean something. The number 1 means I'm the senior ranking officer. So they were beating this kid up the whole time. They didn't discover it for about 48 hours. So then they beat me up, and they go, You traded? Of course, he looks at me and goes, "I can't believe you did that to me, sir." And I went, "I didn't do anything."
That's
not
awesome.
Intentionally, anyway.
And I believe you still know that war criminal number.
Because you have to spend multiple days yelling it out when they tell you to. But yeah, war criminal 33. That was my number. So it's stuck right here.
You'll always remember it.
Well, but this is, you want to talk about life survival skills. People get kidnapped and held hostage off the street. Now, I do remember that initially they had sent entire SEAL platoons
together.
Wow. They learned that was
bad idea.
Right. Because the guys actually took the camp.
Oh, I believe it. That would be dangerous.
Well, so you were asking as far as going with a crew, so I got really fortunate. So I went in 1999. We had a bunch of people at HCS 5 at the time that needed to go. So I ended up going with about 9 fellow air crewmen. One guy, Dave Danielson, hi Dave, was his concrete box was across from mine. So we could pull our partitions back and look at each other and wave and laugh and make faces and stuff, but kind of kept each other going. But ended up, I got a picture, I'll send it to Will, but of the 9 of us in front of the schoolhouse when we got back from the field. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. But we don't want to tell too many tales that could compromise stuff that's ongoing.
Sure.
But, we were talking about the TAP code, which was developed by guys in Vietnam.
Right.
And that's pretty well known, but it's something that's still very useful. But to be able to, communicate with your fellow war criminals, I think is huge. I mean, isolation can be a pretty powerful weapon in and of itself. And as SRO, you probably got put in some small place by yourself.
Yeah, there's a saying when you first get there that everybody says to each other, because the outgoing class will run into you and you're running into them. They all look tired, and you tell them, "Hey, I'm here for the next class," and they look at you and they go, sucks to be you, right? So I was like, what? And so the next guy says the same thing. The next guy says the same thing. And I said, you know what? When I graduate, I'm not going to say that. That's just crap. So they put me in this box, of course, to isolate me from the rest of the crowd. And there was a hole in it to be able to breathe, but there was a piece of light that went there, and I remember it was reflected right here in the box, and I read it, and somebody had wrote in there, "Sucks to be you." And I started laughing so hard. And it was, when they put me away in isolation, I loved it because I was like finally left alone. And because they keep you awake the entire time. I mean, they don't let you sleep at all. And so anytime in there, you're going, God, maybe can I get 5 minutes of sleep? And they're leaving me alone.
But, sleep deprivation, another classic technique to break people down. And now, as I started doing research ahead of this, the Air Force actually has a cadre. Guys who are specialized as SERE instructors.
Yeah, Navy does too.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. As a matter of fact, they can spend their entire 20 years at Fairchild. And when I graduated, I said, now I know why you guys are here. Because if I ever see you again, and if I ever see you out in the field, I was so angry when I left. And you never want nobody wants to see these guys ever again. So when I was in Iraq, these guys showed up at all the different units. And I'm like, oh, great. And I remember it brought back flashbacks. And the sergeant comes up to me, and I'm just staring at him. And he goes, sir, he brings everybody in. He goes, anybody in here a Christian? A lot of us raised our hands. He goes, great. Hand me, if you're wearing a crucifix or any religious artifacts, please hand them to me. Put your name on the bag, and then we'll get it back to you. And so he comes up to me, and he goes, sir, are you wearing any crucifix or anything? I said, I am. He goes, oh, cool. He goes, here, would you put it in this bag and put it out? He goes, why? He goes, sir, if you get shot down and you get captured, they'll decapitate you.
Sanitizing.
And I said, okay, I'm not giving it to you. One, I remembered those guys. I said, just get away from me. It won't have nothing to do with you. And second, by the way, I don't care. If they're going to kill me because of this, that's fine. But I'm not taking it off. But I remember seeing them for the first time outside of Fairchild in a combat zone, which is good because they're there to remind you of all the things, and they give some classes there to remind you, hey, do you remember this? Do you remember how to resist? Do you remember how to evade? Do you remember how to escape? Do you remember how to make a fire?
Making a fire, okay. The survival part, a lot of people get that in any number of venues, and evasion is, it's kind of like hide and seek. Mm-hmm. I thought it was really cool when Johnny told me that he actually evaded the Negritos at jungle school, and that's an achievement. This is their home. That's right. Like hiding out in somebody's living room. And evasion, okay, you're out there in the weather. It kind of sucks, but the real, I think, value comes from being a prisoner. And those are a lot of hard-won lessons. The Vietnam guys, they had the code of conduct, which we've had for a long time, but it didn't go far enough, didn't get into the psychological ramifications. And the lesson for me was, yes, you will break. I'll tell secrets, but that doesn't mean you're broken.
Correct.
The Vietnam guys, many of them they'd be broken and they'd come right back and have to be broken again and broken again and broken again. And that plays on your captors. Mm-hmm. It's like, wait a minute, you're supposed to do everything I tell you now. I'm like, well, no.
Right.
Not anymore.
That's one of the things you learn in the academics portion is the history, like what happened to the POWs in Korea and
oh my God,
and how they broke down. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, that's where the phrase came out that you will break. And so in Vietnam, they try to teach these guys how to survive. And so now they've got it down to a science where they will break you, but you're right, you're not broken. And what was very interesting at the end of when you graduate, before you go back to your unit, you must go see the psych. And you get an evaluation, and you have to pass that evaluation before they let you go home. Because
what, they're going to put you back in the camp?
Because they put you through a lot of trauma in those 3 weeks, and you're sitting there going, "Wow!" I got to see a doc. What's wrong with me? But you're just coming back out of the camp and bringing your head out of that camp, because it is so convincing why you're in there.
Well, and to that point, like they make a point of during the studies or during the capture portion of it, and this isn't really a secret, but not resisting to the point that you get yourself killed. There's tactics to be able to be, evade their questions and give answers that are vague and such, but not resist to the point, because it happened to me that they came out of character and said, "Okay, great job, but you're not supposed to do this until you get killed." Like, okay, the tough guy thing, like, okay, knock it off.
Yeah, guilty. Guilty. And they did. They came out of character and said, "Look, you will die,
right?
If you keep this up, and that's not the goal."
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
It's
more about harassing the enemy than pushing yourself to the end. So, and I think everybody reached that point.
Yeah. It's a valuable experience, but I don't think I could find anybody on the planet. I mean, there may be one warped person. Yeah, I'll go again, but I don't think so.
No.
Hi, we're here at the National Museum of World War II Aviation in Colorado Springs, Colorado, in front of our B-25, and we'd like to show you something.
All right, you see this dipstick? You see that number right there? It says 37.5. That's not 37.5 quarts, it's 37.5 gallons of oil. And that's just for one engine. So take a look around. And you can see for yourself just how much oil could be required to keep this museum flying. This is where our friends at Blazing Aviation come into play.
Blazing Aviation has been partners with the National Museum of World War II Aviation in Colorado Springs for years now, as well as outfitting the Pikes Peak Regional Air Show. And honestly, without their support and the most competitive pricing on the market, keeping these rare birds in the air on a regular basis would be a much harder proposition. With products such as Aeroshell, aviation oil, and Phillips smoke oil, or just your everyday needs in greases and even de-icing fluids, our friends at Blazing Aviation are ready to help you with your needs at the right price.
Look, whether you're a pilot, maintainer, or an owner, there are just some things that you have to fly that airplane. Why not get those things at the best price from the people you know and trust? Get them from Blazing Aviation. Go to blazingaviation.com, airplaneoil.com, or just give them a call at 888-394-0983. And as always, let them know you heard it here on the Wing Victory Podcast.
But what's interesting too is the lead-in. I think the lead-in part where you're out there for, in the case of the Air Force, you're out there for a week in the woods, learning from an instructor, one-on-one, what plants to eat, what insects to eat, what not to eat, and you get one meal. They actually gave us, they gave us 2 meals for 7 days. So it's up to you to ration those 2 MREs. And I remember these kids eating them all day one. And so now for the next 6 days, they're starving. And then during this process, we learned how to capture a rabbit, kill it, skin it, and eat it.
Too.
And it was awesome. It tasted so good because I grew up eating rabbits when I was a kid. So for me, it was no big deal. But for other people who'd never even spent a day in the woods, they couldn't do it. They had a hard time doing this.
Killing a bunny.
Yeah, exactly.
You could definitely tell the people that hadn't gone camping before or lived off the land.
And so as you're going through the woods, I remember, the instructor would say, stop, make a fire. And he gives you like, I can't remember, 15 minutes or something. So you make a fire. And he checks everyone's fire. He goes, okay, put them out. And then he continues the instruction for another hour. And he goes, stop, you have 10 minutes, make a fire. And you're like, what? And he does this all day long, reducing the time down to 30 seconds. So you become a fire starter professional immediately after that day. And
a prime suspect for any arson.
Yeah. And those are the valuable skills to be able to do that. And of course, you're either teaching land navigation and you're going through the woods and learning how to do all of this stuff for a week on very little food, especially if you haven't rationed it correctly. And though by the time they go, okay, now it's time to evade, see ya, don't get captured. And they're like, what? And the instructor lets you go. And everybody runs off in the woods, and then you see this dressed up army of bad guys coming to catch everybody. You see your buddies getting captured with sandbags over their heads and being tied up and taken off in a truck. And you're like, you're just pushing off the inevitable. But you try to stay out there as long as you can. And then they'll bring you in.
So that's what I was telling you, Rob, before we started, is I was on a group of 3, our team of 3, including a Marine recon, Bubba, that we ended up land navving ourselves out of the playing area where it was on purpose, but we ended up so far away from the main area that they finally came out. They gave us like 8 hours to evade. And it was like hour 9 where they're out there with bullhorns going, okay, we get it. Come on, time to go to the camp. Like, knock it off. So we ended up finally having to turn ourselves in.
Yeah.
You're one of those.
Yeah.
Because I remember...
Seemed kind of unfair to me.
Right.
I was a former Army guy, so I knew how to deal with being in the woods. So I was with this kid, this 18-year-old, and we were watching. I'm like, let's be quiet. And we hear all this noise because here's some kids that never been in the forest, but we had these 2 lieutenants, 2 second lieutenants, pilots, and 1 PJ going by, and a combat photographer, and they're trying to navigate, and I go, he wants to wave at him. I said, no, let's watch them. So as this combat photographer is at the back, he goes, sir, will you stop? You're driving me like a farm animal. So we start laughing so hard at this kid, and the PJ's up at front trying to find a way out, and he keeps coming back to him and goes, will you shut up or I am going to drown you out here? And he goes, sir, he's driving me like a farm animal. And he goes, well, I'm going to kill you. And they're making all this noise. And the PJ gets to the road. And he goes, over here, sir, let's go. And they run up the road. I went, ooh, they're on a road.
Yeah.
So I said, let's not do anything. The next thing you see is a truck coming by with all 4 of them tied up with their hands behind their
bags
backs,
on their
bags
heads.
on their heads. And I'm like, that's why you don't make noise.
Well, and so that's, again, to that point, that's kind of one of the interesting things about the school that a lot of people don't think about. Is it's not just surviving in the wilderness, like you're not on a camping trip. It's how to cover your tracks, too.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, how to maneuver and move so that you can evade the enemy, but realizing, breaking sticks or leaving any kind of, telltale behind is...
Like all those fires.
Right.
Yes.
So they teach you to cover your tracks, too.
As you should.
Right.
Yeah.
But, of course, some environments are easier than others. And there are, survival against the odds stories are legion. And then at the same time, there are those who just give up. And it's an interesting phenomenon to see, oh yeah, that guy's going to quit. No, that guy didn't quit. And, Mr. Tough Guy might be the one to fold.
Right.
And again, you learn as much about yourself, I think, as anything else.
You do. You do learn a lot about yourself, and you're right. Being a combat rescue pilot, I've been to a lot of rescues where we discovered where some people would, who saw us fly by, but weren't strong enough to come out there and make a signal or wave at us. And I remember this one guy, he wrote notes and he said, I saw the helicopter again today, because we were looking for him for several days. And he saw us. And he saw it. And he came to journal until the day he died. He had no will. And so I think at this camp, you start learning the skills of will is one of those skills. And
huge.
And those making those little fires, you start learning confidence in yourself, and you can do this, and you can survive this. And when you go without food and without sleep, and then you survive all this, it gives you a lot of incentive just in yourself, because you've learned how to get through those things on your own.
Yeah.
But whereas people who I've tried to rescue that go out in the woods have never gone through anything like that, and that's their first hardship when they find themselves lost. And now they're disoriented, they're hungry, they're dehydrated, and they're not thinking straight.
Right. Well, the not thinking straight goes with dehydration and hunger and everything else, but the mental will to push on, or the will to, I'm going to get out and signal that helicopter.
Fortitude.
Or people call it resilience or whatever it might be. But I don't know that there's enough of that. I don't know that people get tested very much anymore.
What I found, we deployed to Iraq March 2003. We got there the day after shock and awe started. And that squadron I was in, HCS 5, hadn't deployed to a combat zone since 91, since Desert Storm. So you train for years, and then when you are actually faced with, like, okay, we're in combat now. And I think I mentioned on the last podcast, like when we got to Kuwait, we landed in, Scott loves his acronyms, but MOP 4. C-17, we're putting our chemical gear on because the Scuds are inbound and, the base is in MOP 4. But you find out real quick, people that were 10 foot tall and bulletproof before we got to a combat zone are not anymore. I'm not afraid to say that, that there was a little fear, that we're flying missions from Kuwait up into Iraq. And the first part of the war, we're hearing about, active surfaced air and the zoo, which is, different surfaced air. We're getting the tactics briefs, like there's still active, anti-aircraft out there that we're flying these nighttime missions at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're just looking out the window going, you don't know when it's coming. But then there's other people that were kind of quiet that became, in a combat arena. Yeah, it just became kind of the stalwarts, like, stronger people. So you just see what the actual situation brings out in people.
But I think that's one of the attractive things for not just the service, but, whether you're going to go to Outward Bound or whatever. I think people need challenges, whether they know it or not. Mm-hmm. The real question becomes, do you really know you should be doing this? Or, well, I'm just going to go back to my Xbox. And that would be an interesting thing to see a gamer or somebody totally plucked from an artificial environment to a very real environment. And I'm not slamming any generation or any others, because I've served now with 4 generations of people, and again, there's the good ones, and then the ones that's like, well, okay, you go over there. I'm going to go over here.
Yeah. Finding your people.
Right. I had an engine failure out in the desert. By the way, we interesting, no, after talking to each other, we were actually only 100 yards apart.
Yeah,
in
if
Iraq.
that.
No kidding.
Both
Yeah.
our camps, the Navy and the combat rescue, were together.
Yep.
But anyway, I had a engine failure, ended up out in the desert, and this soldier comes up to me and he's like, "Sir, are you okay?" And I said, "I am." I get out of the aircraft and I looked at him and I go, "Son, how old are you?" Because he looked like he was 12. Because he goes, "Hey, can I look at the helicopter?" I said, "You can sit on it if you like." And he goes, "Really?" So he gets in there and I go, "How old are you?" And he goes, 19. I went, "Oh my God." And of course, he's Generation X at the time. And everybody had derogatory terms about Generation X and this and that. And after the war, I said, I will never say anything derogatory about Generation X. Those 19-year-old kids were awesome. And they went into Baghdad in 7 days and they kicked butt the whole time. And I'm watching them for the whole 7 days as we're moving closer and closer to Baghdad from Kuwait. And I was totally impressed, very impressed with those kids.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to make us all feel old, but that generation has been succeeded by yet another.
Wow.
And they're going to produce just as every generation has. And it's testimony to great swaths of the people in this country that we still have folks stepping up.
Oh, yeah.
And
we've exceeded all recruiting efforts in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And just look at the news today, and I'm impressed. I can say I sleep well at night knowing the people that have replaced me in the military are the best.
Yeah, and we're certainly seeing that. The talk of don't fight fair is wise counsel, but just because you're possessed of advantages doesn't reduce all the hazard, or it doesn't reduce the impressive qualities of the people who step up.
Yeah, and I think one more takeaway from SERE school when I was there is you're there with a bunch of strangers. I mean, nobody knew each other when we got there, and we all got real close. And when you're in that camp, if you learn something, you're convinced you're in this foreign country as POW, but you're there with other Americans, and you're trusting each other implicitly, and you're helping each other constantly. And I walked away with going, wow, I had a whole class of friends there. That's who they were. And you have immediate trust in each other. And that was one of the biggest takeaways I had in there. That was comforting. That was the only thing that was comfortable was, here's another American.
Trial by fire brings people together.
Yeah.
Well, and that's trial by fire or cold or, even just being cold for a period of time can sap your strength and your will if you let it.
Oh, yes.
And without giving too much away, the finale of the camp experience does include kind of a bit of a morale builder at the end. You really have passed through something, and when you look at the stories of camps being liberated, it's a huge psychological effect.
It is.
The Vietnam guys, okay, they came home as part of a treaty. But one of the other things that the POW experience gives is, again, that bond. One of the real heroes of all the POW stories was a young sailor named Doug Hegdahl, because the North Vietnamese weren't even allowing, people to be identified. And Hegdahl was the one who was authorized early release. I mean, we had people who quit. And, well, they can live with that. But Hegdahl came out, and he had in his head everybody's names.
Social security numbers.
Yep.
Huge, huge task, and a very valuable one. But we should probably wrap this up, because I don't want to belabor the point, but final thoughts on the experience.
I was glad it was over.
Glad it was over. You know, the running joke is when you're done, make 15 copies of your certificate and hide them all over the house, because it's not one you want to lose.
Correct. Because you don't want to repeat that school. I do remember when I left, there was a pararescueman that was in there with me, and I didn't realize we were in the same squadron. So we got back, we saw each other, and we did a high five, and we went out and we looked at each other and said, you know, was this worth it? You know, was it worth going through this school? Because you're still feeling kind of some of the side effects. And we get in the aircraft together, and I go and drop them in the water and pick them back up, drop them in the water, pick them back up. And we landed, came back, and we're doing high fives. I said, yes, it was worth it. Yes, it was.
Absolutely.
Hey, so the one thing that I'll look straight at the camera and say it, anybody that Googles SERE or looks it up on YouTube and thinks that they're going to get some kind of gouge from this video, the one thing I will tell you is don't get gouged from people coming back from the field. Because your experience, trust me, will be different from what they went through on purpose.
Yeah.
So you get that gouge, and it's actually going to contribute to your confusion and
discomfort.
It will. Just go through the experience and learn what you learn.
So many scenarios.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, your animus notwithstanding, I mean, God bless those people for doing what they do. I wonder, there's probably a psychological cost to them. I mean,
yeah, well, the divorce rate's pretty high, I hear. And they're so good at their job. Because I remember thinking all of them were 10 feet tall. And when you graduate, they shake your hand, and I'm looking down at them, and I went, "You're the same guy?" Because because they have you on your knees all the time, and they're great actors because they play those roles. Very well. And you're convinced they're foreigners.
Yeah,
for sure.
There is that, but Mark mentioned looking up the overarching agency for all of this is the Joint Personnel Recovery Agency, and their motto is "Return with Honor." Mm-hmm. And I think that's a worthy motto, and I'm happy in a twisted kind of way that they do what they do. I should do a little promo for the museum here, because we have steel over the pad.
Yes.
We actually have a roof line here. I'll also put a plug in for the air show. Tickets are on sale. I have no idea how long they're going to be on sale.
Yeah.
But beyond that, want to thank my brothers here, Mark and Zorro, for reliving an important, but again, don't lose those certificates.
Oh, no. Oh, we're done now. If I get captured in Iraq, I'm definitely doing something wrong.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
My e-baby.
Well, it's kind of empty without my sidekick Scott here, and I'm hoping he'll be recovering well from some repair work, and we'll be back to Rob and Scott. But on behalf of Zorro Lopez and Mark Brush, I alluded to where this sort of came from, talking with the Vietnam guys, and I hope this has proven to be an interesting topic for y'all. We are still in process of building a world-class museum here, and I hope you can come and see all this national treasure we work with. And we'll see about some of our sponsors. I think Blazing Aviation has not disowned us, so please check them out for any of your oil needs, and may have a couple of others. We won't burden you with too many commercials here, but thanks for tuning in, and thanks as always to our excellent producer, William Stevenson, who makes me look as good as I can and sound at least as good as I can. So until next time, stay safe out there.